Okay, we've all been there. You set a new goal, you're fired up, you feel that rush of motivation, and you start out strong. And then, somewhere around day 4, maybe day 9 if you're lucky, it just stops. It's that same frustrating feeling every time. But what if I told you that it has absolutely nothing to do with being lazy, and everything to do with a few simple design flaws in how we set up our habits? Let's break down the science of what's really going on.
Right? It's the big question. We ask ourselves this all the time, usually feeling kind of guilty about it. We want to go to the gym, we want to read more, we want to meditate. So why on earth is it so incredibly hard to make these good things actually stick? What is happening inside our brains?
Well, get ready for this number because it shows why this is so important. It is not just you. Not even close. Research shows a staggering 95% of new habits fail within the first month. Yeah, 95%. That means only 1 out of every 20 people actually succeeds. So if you struggled, you're not the exception. You are completely and totally the norm.
And this is the whole point. We've all been sold this story that blames our failures on a personal lack of willpower or discipline. We beat ourselves up thinking, I just need to try harder. But the real science says that story is just flat out wrong. The problem isn't you. It's the broken system you've been trying to use. Here's the truth of it. Neuroscience has shown pretty conclusively that your willpower isn't some deep, infinite well of self-control you can just dip into. Nope, it's much more like the battery on your phone. It gets drained with every single decision you make all day long. So relying on pure force of will to build a new habit, that's like trying to run a marathon on a 10% charge. You're pretty much setting yourself up to fail from the get-go. So let's dive into the 4 major errors, the design flaws that cause our habits to crash and burn. Think of yourself as this little stick man here. You're ready to start this new journey, but you're just standing at a crossroads with 0 signs. This is the very first design error. You have a goal, but your brain has no idea when it's supposed to start. It's missing a trigger.
You see, researchers at MIT figured out that every single habit you have, everything, from brushing your teeth to compulsively checking your phone, it all runs on this simple 3-step loop. It starts with a cue, which is the trigger that tells your brain, hey, time to go on autopilot. That leads to the routine, which is the actual behavior. And it all ends with the reward, that little bit of satisfaction that tells your brain, ooh, that was good, let's remember to do that again. If you don't have a clear cue, that powerful loop never even gets a chance to start.
And this is what that looks like in the real world. A vague goal like, I'm gonna start going to the gym. That's just a wish. It's a floating thought with no signal for your brain to act on. But when you say, right after I pour my morning coffee, I will put on my gym shoes, bam! You've just given your brain a crystal clear, unmissable cue. That coffee pot becomes the starting gun for your new routine.
So the fix is this really cool technique called habit stacking. It's super simple. You just find a habit you already do automatically every single day, like making that coffee, and you literally chain your new habit right onto it. You're not trying to build a new road in your brain from scratch. You're just adding a new stop on a highway your brain already drives down every morning.
Okay, let's move on to the second major error. Now our little stick man is trying to force a square peg into a round hole. This is what happens when we try to adopt a behavior that clashes deep down with our own self-image. This is the identity mismatch.
Now this insight from researcher James Clear is a total game changer. We all have this set of deep-seated beliefs about who we are. And if you believe, even subconsciously, I'm not a healthy person or I'm just not a reader, your brain will always find a way to sabotage actions that contradict that core identity. Because to your brain, doing those things feels like a lie. So the fix here is huge. You have to stop focusing on the outcome and start focusing on the identity. Saying, I'm trying to exercise is temporary. It's full of struggle. But when you reframe it as, I am becoming someone who moves every day, you're not just changing what you do, you are actively upgrading who you believe you are. Just think about the sheer power difference between these 2 statements. The first person, they're in a constant, draining battle with themselves. The second person isn't fighting anything at all. They are simply acting in a way that aligns with their identity. The behavior just becomes a natural expression of who they are. And that has a ridiculously higher success rate. All right, on to our third design error. And here, our poor stickman is just staring up at this massive, intimidating staircase. This is exactly what happens when we make our new habit way too big and way too difficult right at the beginning. We fall for what I call the friction fallacy.
See, we tend to design our habits for our best days, right? For the days when our motivation is through the roof. But what about the bad days? You know, the tired, stressful, overwhelming days. On those days, our motivation absolutely plummets. And if the habit requires a ton of effort, the couch is going to win every single time.
So what's the fix? Well, this comes from Stanford researcher BJ Fogg, and it's going to sound kind of crazy. Make the habit so small, it's almost laughable. So instead of a 45-minute workout, your new goal is 2 push-ups. That's it. Instead of meditating for 20 minutes, it's taking 1 deep breath. The goal isn't the big workout. The goal is just to show up, especially on the hard days.
And here's why that crazy idea works. Your brain builds habits based on repetition, not on intensity. Every time you do your 2 push-ups, you are casting a vote for your new identity as someone who moves every day. You're strengthening that neural circuit, making it a little more automatic. These small, consistent wins are what actually build the habit.
And that brings us to the final, fatal design flaw. Our stickman is running, and he's running, but the reward he's after is dangling miles and miles away in the distance. The problem is, our brains are just not built for this kind of long-term game. This is the reward delay. Let's talk a little bit of biology. Your brain's motivation engine runs on a chemical called dopamine, and that engine is hardwired for one thing and one thing only: immediate gratification. When a reward comes right after you do something, your brain forges this powerful link. But if the reward, like being healthier, is 6 months away, the brain basically just shrugs. It doesn't make the connection.
The fix is to be clever and give your brain a little hit of dopamine right away. It doesn't have to be a big deal at all. It can be savoring that first guilt-free sip of coffee right after you do your 2 push-ups. It can be the satisfying feeling of making a big check mark on a calendar, or it can even be a simple verbal reward. Saying out loud, "Nice, that's who I'm becoming." You're speaking your brain's language.
So when you put all of this together, what does it really mean? It means we have to stop thinking of ourselves as laborers, people who have to force change through brute effort and willpower. Instead, we need to become architects, cleverly designing systems that make our desired behaviors feel almost effortless.
And here it is, your new toolkit. These are the 4 design principles for a habit that actually lasts. First, find a cue by stacking a new habit onto an old one. Second, shift your focus from the outcome to your identity. Third, shrink the habit down until it's ridiculously easy to do. And fourth, give yourself an immediate reward to close that habit loop. I love this quote because it is so incredibly empowering. Success isn't just for people with some kind of superhuman discipline. No, it's for people who understand how their own brain actually works and then design their habits to work with their biology, not against it.
And really, that's the ultimate destination, isn't it? When you get the design right, you stop needing motivation. You stop needing willpower. And one day, you just kind of realize you're doing the thing without even thinking about it. It's not something you do anymore. It's just a part of who you are.
So all this leaves us with one last really important question. Looking at this new toolkit, I want you to think about a habit you've struggled with in the past. It wasn't your fault that it failed, but now you have the blueprint, you have the science. So, what's the very first habit you're going to redesign?